He once said, "I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. But what if I told you that the night before his death, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. somehow knew it was coming? Yes, the man who dreamed of peace, justice, and equality felt the shadow of death walking beside him. This is not just the end of his story. This is the chapter where a dream turns into destiny. The night before. It was April 3rd, 1968. The city of Memphis, Tennessee was soaked in rain. Thunder rolled above the Mason Temple where hundreds of people had gathered, waiting anxiously. They had come to hear Dr. King and the voice of hope, the man who had turned suffering into strength. But that night Martin was exhausted. He had been leading marches for sanitation workers, black men who carried America's trash but weren't treated like humans. He was tired, sick, and under constant threat. The FBI followed him. Death threats flooded his home daily, and his friends begged him to rest. Still, he came. When Martin entered the church, the crowd erupted in cheers. His eyes were heavy, but his voice carried fire. He looked at the people before him, people who had marched, been beaten, and never stopped believing. Then he began speaking, and slowly, powerfully, unlike a man who had seen the future. "Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop, and I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will." The crowd fell silent. Tears rolled down faces. It was as if they knew this was more than a speech. It was a farewell. Then Martin's voice rose again, thunderous and sure. "I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land." The church exploded with amen and applause. But behind the applause, a chill ran through everyone's heart. His words sounded too final, too certain. No one knew that this would be his last night alive. The morning of April 4th. The next morning, Martin woke early. He was staying at the Lorraine Motel, room 306, in a place that had become almost like home. His closest friend, Reverend Ralph Abernathy, joined him for breakfast. They laughed, joked, and talked about the movement. There was a lightness in Martin that morning, a strange calm, as if a burden had lifted. He talked about the future, about peace marches, about the Poor People's Campaign. He was planning life, even though death was already planning him. Outside, rain clouds were clearing. Children played in the street. Martin smiled as he looked out the window, unaware that across the road, that man was James Earl Ray, a drifter and escaped convict. He hated everything Martin stood for. Love, equality, brotherhood. To him, the dream was a threat. He aimed and waited. The assassination. Evening came, April 4th, 6:01 p.m. Martin stepped out of his motel room to talk to his friends standing below. He leaned on the balcony railing, adjusting his tie. He smiled, called down, "Make sure you play Precious Lord, Take My Hand at the meeting tonight." And then, a single gunshot tore through the air. Bang! The bullet struck him in the neck. He fell backward instantly. Blood spread across the balcony floor. Reverend Abernathy and others rushed up the stairs. They screamed his name, pressed towels to his wound, prayed desperately. But his eyes were still. Within the hour, the news spread. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was dead, age only 39. A man who preached peace was silenced by hate. A nation in tears. When the word reached the cities, chaos erupted. In more than 100 cities across America, riots broke out. People burned, cried, shouted. How could they kill the man who only spoke of love? But amidst the rage and fire, something else was born. Determination. Martin's death didn't kill his dream, it spread it. His wife, Coretta Scott King, stood strong. She led marches, gave speeches, and carried his message forward. She refused to let his blood be wasted. And slowly his dream began to shape the nation. In the years that followed came new laws. The Fair Housing Act, protecting people from racial discrimination in housing, and continued enforcement of the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts that Martin had fought for. His life had ended, but his legacy had only begun. The dream lives on. Decades passed. Generations changed, but the voice of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. refused to fade. In classrooms, his speeches are still played. In streets, his words still inspire marches for justice. And in hearts and across every race, every nation, and his message still burns bright. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Martin taught the world that courage is not the absence of fear. It's standing up despite it. He showed that love is not weakness. It's the strongest weapon we have. And though his life was cut short, his dream reached farther than he ever could have imagined. The mountaintop he spoke of, humanity is still climbing it, step by step, voice by voice, heart by heart. The final message. Imagine this. A single man without an army, without wealth, faced one of the most powerful systems of injustice on earth. And he didn't pick up a gun. He picked up a dream. That dream marched in Montgomery because destiny didn't end with his death. It began with it. He was born in a world of hate, but he left behind a world of hope. He died at 39, but his dream lives forever. So the next time you hear the words, "I have a dream," remember, that dream was written in courage, sealed in sacrifice, and carried by love.